they have this personal brand where they sell these courses, but you never learn what their actual agency was where they did this. They had this success. It's all about like, oh, I scaled my agency to this and this and this. Like, well, what was the agency called? Like, where is it? There's a saying in our grammar in English where if like I'm teaching Cody something like how to do something audio related to the podcast, and I'd be like, if I said you're doing good, you would say, well, you aren't doing good, you're doing well, because Superman does good. And then you're doing well. So good being implying that you're doing good things.
Yeah. Like good is what you do to the world, but you can do well for yourself or something like that.
I think, was it yesterday? I woke up to something that wasn't that great. That wasn't good. We got our first 1-star Spotify podcast review. And to say my soul was crushed is an understatement.
I figured you were pretty hurt.
I really, it's weird. I was, but at the same time, we do a lot of like calling people out, and I want us. And one of the recent episodes that has performed really well was the one where we kind of dunked on masterminds. And
that went well.
Yeah, and it's doing a lot better out of like the last 5 episodes.
Well,
and
okay.
And a lot of people in the industry, have a mastermind or belong to one. And I think when we dunk on somebody that has spent $1,000 or $2,000 or recurring, however much on a mastermind, I imagine we can hurt some feelings or whatever. The other thing is that, competitor podcasts that just don't like us. And I'm probably being very myopic on the people who don't like us, because there's probably just some people who listen to this and just say, I don't like those guys. But then, like,
for what it's worth, I don't I don't like myself either. So we can just
we're all in this together. We don't like us either. So
feeling is mutual.
I feel like I'm being very myopic on that situation though, because I'm like, well, there's gotta be a reason that you don't like us, and it's probably XYZ, but it's I don't know. I'm kind of like, if you don't like it, if you don't like the podcast, just don't listen to it. But at the same time, we do ask people for reviews, positive or negative. Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of where I have the problem, which is like, if you're just gonna leave a 1-star, then not say anything to us, then like, how can we make it better?
Yeah, and that's tough though, right? Because it's nice to be anonymous, because then you can be more honest and true about your feelings. But then you can't do that on Spotify, because it doesn't give you an option. All you can do is your stars. So if they're not Apple users, they can't go over there to leave their review.
That's not the user's fault. That's 100% on Spotify. I've already complained to Spotify about not being able to put content in the reviews. Mm-hmm. But because they asked me like, how is it being a creator on Spotify? I'm like, well, honestly, it kind of sucks. Because like if the reviews are any kind of ranking factor as they are on Apple, and you can't even put like content in there, then what's the point?
Yeah, it's just a pure number system.
Yeah.
But then, so the other option then is to email us, but that's
we did get one criticism in our emails, and
that was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it was cool. The way he worded it was kind of rude, but
Jake's over here like, that was rude.
It wasn't really constructive. It was just kind of like, your cold opens suck, and like, you are very scammy with your or it's like a bait and switch on our episode titles, which it's not. You just keep listening and you will get to it. But that's why in the recent episodes, I've started putting like what minute mark or what second mark our cold open ends, and then what the cold open is about. So if you want to skip that, you can. And that was part of the feedback that we got. So I was like, hey, here's what we can do. Like, I don't want to get rid of these, because I have gotten feedback that these are kind of fun to listen to, and it's just a warm up to. And so we're not going to get rid of them. But if you want to skip them, that minute mark is there. So that's for you who find these annoying.
Yeah.
But if you find these annoying, you're probably already skipped it.
Yeah. If you eat your cereal in the shower to save on time, then you can now skip the cold opens and just maximize every waking second of your life. And you will be the optimal human being.
Yeah. Optimal entrepreneur.
Yeah, there you go.
So this was a whole thing just to say, hey, we got a negative. I only know it was a 1-star review because you can't actually see the individual reviews, because we had 21 reviews and then it went to 22. and then it dropped to a 4.8. And I was like, well, if I averaged these and I pretend it's a 1 star, it dropped to it was a 4.814 or something like that. So, so all of this really was just to say, hey, leave us a review on Spotify or preferably Apple, because you can actually put content in there and give us feedback. If you want to leave us a 3-star review and give us, feedback, great.
You want to shoot us an email, give us real constructive criticism too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
You can. I don't care. You can be a dick.
Yeah,
if you want to be.
We're kind of dicky, so I feel like we should, what goes around comes around, right?
To be reciprocated. Yeah, mutual dickness. If you want to be a dick.
All the.
I don't know about that. Maybe keep it. Maybe don't.
Hey, before we jump into the episode, real quick, look what I'm drinking from.
Nice mug.
I know. Nice. I wish you would have brought yours because mine. I know, because then we could have the same mug. So in episode 49, Cody bought me a mug that was identical to the one that we had an argument about in episode 44. and so now I drink out of it on Fridays, which is when we record. Well, today is Monday, but just out of fun, I guess.
Pure fun.
So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
And another way that I'm thinking about you, I did get a watch that has Japan time on it. So now it's got 2 times. It's got my time and yours. 2 time zones, 1 heart.
I got one on my wish list too. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm gonna.
Yeah. All right. What are we talking about? Let's jump into it. Oh, okay. So this is actually a topic that I saw in a Facebook group. It was marketing agency owners. Someone had asked in a very long format way, is it better to build a personal brand or to build an agency? So in other words, is it better for me, Jake Hunley, is it better to start like a consultancy under Jake Hunley? And then when you work with me, you work with Jake Hunley, or start an agency like our agency, Evergrow, and start it and push it as Evergrow Marketing and not Jake Hunley. And Jake Hunley is just the kind of the owner. I'm just a person in that company. And I don't know, like without reading all of this again, he was just having a lot of difficulty deciding on this because when you're his whole theory was like when you're a personal brand, I think he was extrapolating it to like Gary Vee, because Gary Vee has a personal brand and he can charge $20,000 or $50,000 a speaking engagement just to show up. And that's pretty cush. Like if you can do that 4 times a year, that's a nice salary. Whereas when you start an agency, you got to be a little more realistic. And
he's also got VaynerMedia, right? You don't think all of his money is coming straight from, his personal
brand. Shut up. You're getting to a point that I'm going to talk about later.
Sorry. Okay. I take it back. You didn't hear that. Wait for it.
So I thought this is a good episode to talk about when you're starting, what should you do? And if you've already started one and you want to transition to the other one, a really good way to do it. So I figured I could just jump in and talk about the personal brand first, because this is easier to start because you don't really need to set up any kind of entities or anything. It's just you. And I like the idea of a personal brand from an ego standpoint because it's you and it looks cool. It's, you're whoever you are. And you can do things like high ticket consulting. Like you look at some of the big names on YouTube right now, which there's Alex Hormozzi or something. I don't follow these guys. I don't really care for them.
Mr. Beast, right? Does he count?
Oh yeah, Mr. Beast. That's a personal brand. Well, I was leading more towards like the agency personal brand. Oh, you had like Ty Lopez, and then you had like there's a relatively newer one, Eamon Godzi or something like that. I don't know how to say his name.
Who's the Dan Lok?
Dan Lok, yeah, the Asian guy.
He's still doing anything? Is he still?
Probably. Dude's a scam artist.
I just saw some of this stuff one time. I was like, he looks kind of cool. I don't know anything about him, but he did the pictures, right?
Yeah, Billie Jean. No, so all these guys' marketing is great. Like their actual YouTube marketing, but like their courses are absolute garbage. And, but like these are all personal brands, and yeah, they like, you can argue that they have an agency, but they've built a brand off of that personal brand. The other thing that's like really unique about it, and this is kind of a tangent, but they have this personal brand where they sell these courses, but you never learn what their actual agency was where they did this. They had this success. It's all about like, oh, I scaled my agency to this and this and this. Like, well, what was the agency called? Like, where is it? Side rant.
Yeah. Bring it back.
The other thing is too, it's easier to get recognized as a personal brand. So, usually people are more likely to recognize experts versus agencies, or experts versus companies, because experts, it's really easy to portray yourself as a knowledgeable person who's unbiased. Whereas when you're an agency, it's harder, or it's easier for people to see that, well, obviously they're trying to make a profit, and it can be harder to get clients initially if you're not just a personal brand. Or you can kind of think of it on the flip side of the coin, where it's harder to get clients if you're a personal brand, because if you don't have any experience, well, who the hell are you? But you can kind of hide behind that in an agency. And then I think the last pro that I had was high ticket consultants. So when it's just you, everybody has the same constraint in the entire world, which is time. And there was a motivational speaker, I can't remember who it was, but the line was, you have the same 24 hours in a day that Oprah has. Or you have the same 24 hours in a day that any celebrity has in the world, or any, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. Like, you have the same 24 hours. And obviously you have different resources, but when let's say you booked consultant appointments an hour a day, and you charge $1,000 per hour, which is really high. You can, if you just work like a normal day, that's 8 times 1,000 times, let's just say you work 4 days a week, or 5 days a week, times 5, times 4, 4 weeks in a month. No, we'll just do 52. That's a year. So like your maximum that you can possibly make. Did I do this right? It says 2 million. $1,000. Wait, $1,000 a day.
1,000 an hour.
Yeah, you're
doing 8 hours a day.
Yeah. But your maximum income is 2 million, which sounds like a lot. It's great, but then like you're also working 40 hours a week, and if you take a vacation, you're not making money. So you can do high ticket consulting, but you are extremely limited to your time, because it's you can't duplicate yourself. And when you're first starting out, you're not going to be charging $1,000 an hour. That's like what Gary Vee is charging. You're going to be charging $100 an hour, or maybe even less than that. When I first started, I was charging $60 an hour. But that is the kind of the con of that. Cody, give me some of your takes.
Man. Okay. Yeah. Well, first, I think you can generally if you want to do it lazily, you can put people into 1 or 2 categories. You do have the high ticket consultants, and then you have the job creators, and those are 2 completely different kinds of entrepreneurs. And I think the high ticket consultant, it's not limited to just that. I just mean it's more of the subject matter expert / creator / artist field, where you have the ability as a solopreneur to monetize yourself with whatever it is that you do and your specialty is. And that comes down to really what kind of life that you want, right? If you you can go the route of, I like feeling important. I like the attention that sort of work gives me, and you'll find it there for sure, because it's all you. But also, even if you aren't like that, if that's not your personality, but you just don't like the idea of managing a team or having people later on that you are responsible for, then maybe that route is better. And you can keep doing in some ways you're potentially limited to money, but you're really just, I think, limited in the way of what people are willing to pay for you, because it's a much simpler formula for a scale. Fill up your time, right? Whatever you're charging at your rate, once you can't take on more work, you double what you cost. So take whatever your rate is and double it.
You'll lose half your clients.
Right. You lose half of them. And then you replace them. And then once that happens to you again, you rinse and repeat, until you get to whatever your market equilibrium is of what people are willing to pay for you and what you're able to earn in return. So that's one way to do it. And I think an important note, and it'll go into the second one, but is, the downside to it is that you can't sell your personal brand later on. There's no cashing out. There's no, I want out of this. Give me the big yacht money check. I'm donezo. I'm retiring. But, if compared to running a business or an agency, if you want to change what you're doing, you can much more easily do that with a personal brand because you have people that are personally invested in you, in your life, and who you are as an individual. So if you go on and do the next thing, and it's radically different from whatever it is that you were previously doing, sure, you're going to lose people because they were following you for, not everybody just liked you as much as it, even if it is a personal brand, not everybody's going to find you personally interesting, but some of them will. And some of them, that's why they listen. And we like to, think, especially with something like this podcast, some of this is personal brand for us, right? Because you like, and that's why we do the cold open. So you can learn more about us too. You can change that later on and go on to the next thing without a complete and total loss of everything you built up along the way. Whereas, it's never a complete and total loss. Even if you do get that cash out, you've built up network connections, you have, other people in the industry, but you might be legally limited too, right? If you do take that cash out from an acquisition or something, they might put some, a box around what you are and aren't able to do in the same industry or relevant ones, through not cease and desist. What is it? No compete. That's the word. Yep. Jenny's over here whispering it. So yeah,
it's worth a note too. Like there are other ways to earn income than just like an hour a day. Like you can do speaking engagements that you can charge, thousands of dollars for just to be there. That comes at a different level though. Like when you first start out, you're doing what you said, you're filling up your schedule and then with individual people, and then you're rinsing and repeating until you gain some notoriety to where, and you have like a publicist or like a PR person where they can, get you at speaking events as a subject matter expert. That also requires you to become a subject matter expert.
Yeah, this is all with the assumption that you're not 22 years old thinking that you're going to be a business consultant. Okay. Like, I'm sorry, but nobody's going to pay you who, you hardly shave yet. And you've got no experience.
I'm 30 and I hardly shave.
I'm jealous. I wish. But yeah, how can you sell something you don't know how to do yet? Go get some practical experience, go get good, go become the subject matter expert so that you are able and do it long enough to get the major stuff. And then once you feel confident enough to take the jump, then go do it too. It takes simultaneously longer and not as long as you think. You start seeing diminishing returns at a certain point where you're not learning as much as quickly. Then you have to weigh what that point is for you and when you think you're comfortable to start charging for what you know.
Yeah, I think if anything, building a personal brand versus an agency, the subject matter expertise portion of it should scare you the most, because it even scares me, and I consider myself a subject matter expert in SEO because I'm not the smartest person in SEO. There are still people out there way nerdier than me, and if I get on stage and talk about it, you're increasing your visibility, and like you can't hide behind a computer and check facts before you say things. So there's a really good possibility of kind of tarnishing your personal brand by saying the wrong things or making it obvious that perhaps you're not the subject matter expertise that people think you are, or expert that people think you are. And that's a real risk of that too. So just make sure that when you build a personal brand, like you're good at what you do and you're not just like trying to sell clout, because if you do, your only real direction is creating a course online and then hoping that works out with the oversaturated market. And even when that comes is You have to also consider that what type of personality you are, because if you're an introvert, personal brand's probably not going to be super great for you. Maybe in one-on-ones it will be, but then you're very limited to what you can do or what you'd be willing to do in terms of income. So you have basically affiliate marketing that you can do with your personal brand. And then you also have your kind of one-on-one consulting. Because if you're introverted and you don't want to do speaking engagements, or you don't want to do like coursework that sells, and unfortunately the coursework that sells are like the very personal, relatable people who are like, I don't know, extroverted, then you're going to have a harder time. So I don't know, just think about that and starting a personal brand. I had a couple cons with this. I already talked about them a little bit, but one of them is it's not as scalable as an agency. You could probably earn more money in a personal brand faster than an agency. But I think there's going to be a point where the agency, if you do it right, is going to skyrocket past the personal brand. And then
if you're willing to stick around long enough, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing too is it depends how you feel about delayed gratification. I mean, no matter what, you start a business, you're delaying gratification. Doesn't matter. It'll be for years, even if it is a personal brand. But how long are you willing to wait for the cash out? Because it will come sooner if it's just you. And yeah, how big are your dreams here? Do you want golf course, like home on the golf course money, or you want the yacht money? Because the yacht money with the personal brand, if you do it, let me know. That's really cool, and I'll congratulate you. But I think it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and we'll get to it. But Gary Vee doesn't have yacht money on a personal brand. It's we'll talk about that later. The only other thing is like you're only as good as your reputation. So if you screw up, your personal brand can get ruined. Whereas like if you screw up in an agency, there are a lot of ways that you can spin that publicly that kind of shifted. I mean, I guess you can kind of do the same thing with personal brand, but this kind of goes into the effect of like speaking engagements and things like that. If you're not confident in what you do, it's very easy to tarnish your reputation. You look at people like, I guess it's a bad example. I was going to say Andrew Tate, like tarnishes his reputation, but at the same time, he's got all these like troglodytes following him. So I don't know how that works.
I'm like, I don't know what I can say here that's going to be helpful at all. I'm like, the second I heard about the guy, I'm like, don't know if that's great. So
you know what's crazy is how many people actually like still follow him and defend him. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that's the internet. All news is good news.
Yeah. After he like openly admits to abusing women, like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
We're gonna get some hate on that. We'll get a 1-star review on that one.
Yeah, some guy that likes beating women is gonna be like, listen up.
Or thinks that we're just wrong and things were taken out of context. I feel like if we're gonna call people out, we should just be accepting the 1-star reviews because it's gonna happen.
I don't know, and I literally know nothing. So sometimes like if Jake pokes me, I'll just give an answer just for the sake of doing it too. But also like I'm doing it purely for the entertainment value. So if you want me to just say things so that they're outrageous and funny and interesting, I can do that. But generally speaking, I'll say things confidently that I don't know, or I'll say things that I don't know confidently knowing that I don't know them.
I like to poke bears. I like to poke bears until like I don't, and then it consumes my life, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna back off from this for a while. All right, okay, let's switch to agencies. So let's talk about like what it's like to start an agency and why, and some of the pros and cons of this. I put build an empire and it's scalable. So and this all kind of relates to being able to like sip martinis on a beach or pina coladas or whatever you like. My favorite thing is to just drink coconuts on a beach. You asked Lauren about this and I love my coconuts, which is a new thing because I never liked coconut water. Until we went to Mexico like 2 years ago. And I was like, I don't care what we do, but while I'm there, I will drink out of a coconut on a beach. And we got one. And it was super delicious because I've had that Vito Coco water that you get at like the gas station or whatever, or like the store that comes in like those paper things, those paper bottles. And I used to think it was disgusting, like absolutely terrible. But then I drink out of a coconut and it's so amazing. So now I have some more. I was like, let's try this again. Is it still disgusting? And my answer is no. Because okay. Wayne, who worked at Mud with us, he always drank Vita Coco, that coconut water.
What's so good? Like, what's it do for you? I don't get it.
Well, coconuts, I think, are just like a superfood, but you can't eat too much of it. And if you only eat coconut stuff, you can get like diarrhea. But I'm like, but it like, I guess there's like it's like hydrating. I don't know. I honestly don't know. You're asking.
I used to do when I would bulk, I do coconut milk and protein shakes because it's so fatty.
Oh yeah,
that was the only time I'd ever do it. But other than that, I didn't know that there was any benefits. I just knew that you could get chunky quick if you drank a lot of it.
I know there's a lot of vitamins in coconut water. I kind of consider it like milk, honestly, because it is kind of like a milk. It's just kind of clear. But I realized that when you drink Vita Coco without ever having a coconut on a beach or something, then you ask yourself, like, is this really what coconut water tastes like? This is disgusting. Or it feels like fake. It feels artificial.
Is it?
No, it's straight coconut water. So like if you actually drink
really
from a coconut, yep.
Oh, okay.
If you drink from like an actual coconut, you're like, oh, this is delicious. But then but mentally when you drink it from like a paper cup, you're like, this is gross. So you have to have that experience first, and then you drink from the Vita Coco, and you're like, this is actually really good. It tastes just like a coconut.
So more you know.
Tangent. Anyways, so back to agencies. So Cody and I started building an agency. Well, I started Evergrow for the primary purpose of I wanted the ability to sell it. So the number one thing that I didn't do when considering my agency was use my last name in the agency name, like Hunley Consulting or Hunley Digital Marketing.
Like the classic old guys.
Yeah.
Those are the agencies that are the big ones. They're like 4 guys. They're all dead. It's just their last name. It's like Hunley Bradstreet. Give me some Smith and Bob.
Yeah. A lot of law firms are like this, but a lot of law firms change their name once their original partners die and the new partners take over, which I think is awful for SEO. But you can't like not sell a agency or a company with a last name. You absolutely can, but it's harder when you have a brand that's big like this and it isn't anybody's last name or isn't associated to a specific person. Then it's way easier to sell. Now, keep in mind, I just wanted the ability to sell it. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm growing it in order to sell it. I wanted to keep my options open. The other thing too was when I first started Evergrow, I had a lot of experience in SEO and some in Google ads and Facebook ads, but I didn't consider myself a subject matter expert. I knew what I was doing enough to be effective. So building a personal brand was a dangerous game for me because I didn't want to get myself into a situation where suddenly people in the same industry who are on the same level as me were seeking advice. I wanted to provide my service to people who had lower experience and expertise than I did. So that's how Evergrow was formed. But I imagined myself having this whole thing run on autopilot for me while I spent 2 weeks on a beach or doing whatever I wanted to do. I didn't like the idea of working 40 hours a week anymore, regardless whether it was my own thing or for somebody else. And I didn't see a possibility of that, one, working for someone else, and then 2, creating a personal brand. If I created a personal brand, I'm like, I'm going to be working all the time. I can charge a ton and I go to these speaking engagements, but like it's still work. And I want the ability to be able to grow this, but I also, I'm a very committed person too. So delayed gratification isn't a problem for me at all. I can wait a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We're at 5 years now. And, because I want to be, I don't care. I never cared about being rich in my 20s. I want to be rich and like stupid rich in my 40s.
I do think though that there is the path. You do have the option, even if you are a personal brand. I mean, again, the maximum amount of money is different, but if you do just do a lot of work up front and you want to take time off and plan for it, you can do that too, right? If you want to work hard, like really hard for 9 months and then just coast for 3, based on the money that you had saved at that point, you can set up your life to do that and your work schedule. But that is then on you to do it. Well, it's always on you, no matter what. These are your businesses either way. So it is possible, but
we have a client who, or not a client, more like an industry partner who kind of has a personal brand, but it's more like a podcast and a consultancy for people in our niche. And he was just talking to us about how his schedule is just like totally eaten up. He's a part-time or full-time, I don't know. He's a firefighter, has a landscaping business, and also has his own podcast and consulting. And I remember telling him when we first started talking to him about his consulting business that he needed to charge more for his one-on-one consulting package and monthly packages, and then also prioritize getting people on his cheaper package, which is like group sessions, because even though your group sessions are only $99 a person per month, you can have an unlimited amount of people in those, or in theory, an unlimited amount of people.
His business model was very similar to Kevin's that we talked about, previously.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have listened to that one, then but similar concept.
Well, I think like episode 47, I think, or something with Kevin Marcus Miller. Yeah, but if you have a business model like that, you can have the one where the price point where you charge a lot for dedicated one-on-one time, and then charge a lot lower for having multiple people in a group session. But you should prioritize the group session one because you can fill it up with more people and spend less time doing it. Ultimately getting to the point where it kind of outweighs that. But I don't know how I got here. I was on a train, a thought train, and then I just derailed.
I could have took you off. I don't remember.
I think you did, yeah. But there are some cons of an agency too. There are labor constrictions in good employees. So if you don't want to deal with labor, or don't want to deal with trying to find help or work or contractors or whatever, you have to, maybe a personal brand is better. But the other part of that is just kind of like operational headaches. And people say that there's so much headaches with scaling, but they never really get specific on what those headaches are. And a lot of ours is labor constriction. When you have an agency, you have, and let's say you experience a really big growth wave, but you don't have the internal or external resources to execute the amount of work that's coming in. That's a headache because you now have
Coke Zero and buckle down, buddy. Because
it's a good headache to have because you have money coming in, but you also have the potential to damage your business's reputation if you don't handle those onboarding clients well. And you have to make the conscious decision of saying, no, we can't take on any more work, just like we did until September. Some of the other headaches that we deal with are like internal capacity and limitations, not just in terms of time, but also in terms of the number of ad accounts we can have and billing issues that we have in ads. We just dealt with one recently where we reached our Google Ads account limit at 50 accounts, and we were onboarding people that we literally could not create an ad account for because we weren't. What was the issue? We weren't spending enough per account.
Yeah. So there's there's a 50 account limit. If you have not hit 10K in ad spend in the last year in a single month. So we had a very large rush of a lot of high spending accounts. Whereas up until somewhat recently, we had a handful of outliers that spent quite a bit more, but then, our base was pretty much like 250 per account because it's a combination thing. We tie them together, SEO and ads primarily. So yeah, we hadn't really dealt with that yet. And I reached out early to Google Ads, and yeah, no exceptions, of course. So then we were just hanging on and holding out until
it was. It was close. It was close. Like I think we had like 50 accounts, and we had like 1 or 2 accounts that had to be onboarded, pushing us to 52.
And then our previous month too was also like, what was it? It was like 9K or something. Like we were very close to. It was very dumb.
Yeah. So like if we like made it like 2 weeks, it was like the 15th of the month, and if we made it to the 30th and made it to the 1st, we were gonna be over 10K. It was per month, 50 accounts and 10K per month. We were gonna be over 10K. So the only way we could onboard, get to that unlimited amount of accounts was by waiting, just waiting until the 1st, which means we couldn't onboard the 2 remaining accounts. Fortunately, I was like, we did get to a point where it was like 3 days until the new month, and we were ready to go. But we were like, don't worry, we're so late to the end of the month, we'll just start the next month. And which was fortunate for us because like that's the only option we had internally. And and now we're dealing with a whole billing changeover.
I tell people straight up all the time, and I'm not joking. And the way I say it, people think that I'm joking, and they're like, "Hey, that's so funny because like you're on the business, and that's a funny thing to say." But I'm really not kidding when I'm like, I've only just gradually inched up into these things because I've disliked the alternative more. So I'm willing to continue taking on more and more of this stuff. Like from the very start, when I partnered up with Jake, I said, let's get you to 10K and then let's reevaluate, because I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this. And there's a lot of stuff that I hit in the business where I'm just constantly pushing my max, being like, I'm at the maximum of what I care to do. And then I see the next step of how much more work is required. And that is specific to growing an agency with multiple people and that sort of thing, as opposed to a personal brand. And then, you stop and you think, okay, at what rate, at what pace is this still worth it? How much should I be killing myself, breaking my back, not taking care of my health? And you just have to find obviously go as hard as you can, but simultaneously take care of yourself, because, your health is important, and you only get one shot at that. So but I feel like I'm constantly like pushing my personal max. And so whenever people are like, yeah, it must be nice, I'm like, you want to do it? You just want to swap quick? You go for it. It's all you. Like, I think
the worst times, like the biggest headaches of the business are the deadlines. So we built a business where we have basically month-long sprints for SEO and Google Ads, which means like clients really can't have any expectations for us that are less than a month. And that's part of the productized service that we built. But there are other deadlines that like have to happen. So when you have month-long sprints, your deadlines have to happen. On the 3rd, reports have to go out. Fortunately, we can automate that. On the 15th, subscription invoices for ads and services have to go out on the 15th for the following month. And there are situations where like 1 or 2 or might be delayed, but that's okay. But like if things don't fire, like that's an issue. Everything, the SEO updates for that month have to be done by the 30th or the 31st. And if it isn't, it's a problem. So there are headaches like that, especially when you have 50 plus clients and no like dedicated internal admin to kind of monitor this, when it's just kind of myself and Cody making sure that all the work is getting done. But those are just kind of like operational headaches. I wanted to call a couple of them out because people always say, hey, if you don't want to deal with the business or the headaches of the business, why don't you work for me or something like that? Which is like, this is a headache of the business. And if like, you're okay working with that, I just wanted to call it out because nobody else seems to be specific about it.
Yeah. And I just think most people, I don't know. Especially if they're completely solo and they don't have a partner, they probably signed up for that. So they're okay with it. So they're not going to be the type to complain about it. Whereas I've said before, I'm like, I wouldn't do this without Jake. So I'm very easily,
we've said it before though. I think it's cool. I think it's cool when we start dealing with like health insurance and we start dealing with, different accounting things and taxes and things like that. It's because it's something that the majority of the population doesn't deal with. And then when you have the capability to talk about it in an educated way, I think that's cool in itself.
Oh, it's very cool. And it is very fun. But it's only fun because I got you. Like it would not be.
Bro, you being cute. You being cute today.
Yeah. If I was up until 3 a.m., reading, this book here, my, 外国人のための企業設立 manual, which is
what did you call me?
It's I don't know how to translate this because like Japanese is effectively backwards to English. So it's like how to establish the manual for establishing businesses in Japan for foreigners. Like it's fun staying up late and you like shooting me messages about stuff that I read, but it wouldn't be fun if I'm just reading that totally by my lonesome, because that's not a very exciting book to read.
We've been watching a lot of Naked and Afraid lately, like binging that show. So if you're not familiar with it, it's just like 2 people get dropped off in the wilderness and they are naked and they only get to bring 1 tool each. There's been a lot of episodes where one person taps out and then they just leave the other person there for like 2 weeks. So so they gotta be in there for 21 days, and they only get diary cameras, and then like a crew, like a very small crew of like 3 people follows them around, but they're not allowed to engage with them. And then at night the crew goes away, so it's just them, and a ton of people tap out and can't do it. And then there's a lot of episodes where like one person taps out and leaves, and I've noticed that it's phenomenally easier when you have both people, even if both people hate each other, because it's like just someone there to share the awful experience with. But when it's just you, it starts to like eat at them. And they're like, I can't do this. And they last like 2 more days. Unless you get to season 5, and season 5, there's been some wild people that have like their partners tapped out on like day 3 and 4. And then they went the next 17 to 18 days just by themselves. Yeah. And they both made it. And I was like, holy crap.
Would you want to do something like that?
Lauren and I talk about this all the time. Like, I don't think I could make it. I think I would want to. I think it'd be fun. But because I have such debilitating migraines, I think on day 2, I'd have a migraine. I'd be like, I want out.
Okay.
And then, Lauren has never like actually camped. So the fact that you have to lay naked on the ground, I don't think she would do too well. But there are, it's 1 man and 1 woman too. So that makes it extra awkward, when they do it.
But I think part probably isn't.
If I could get my migraines under control, I would love to try it. But I would also want to go through like some training too on like how to build shelter and how to make traps and things like that, because you can't just swing a machete at things and expect to find food. There are people who do that show and they go all 21 days without eating anything more than a snail. It's wild. Yeah. It's a great way to lose weight, because at the very end of it, they show you like how much they weighed when they started, and like when they got done, how much they lost. In one episode, one dude lost 35 pounds.
Jeez.
That's insane. And he wasn't like fat. He was just kind of like average build, average US build.
Okay.
So probably like
so fat.
It's probably like 230, I would say. And then like 230, like 5'10" maybe. And yeah, he dropped down 35 pounds. A lot of the women who go on that show are like 160 and they lose like 25 pounds. It's crazy.
Jeez.
Like the ultimate diet.
Wait, ask me if I'd do it.
Cody, would you do it?
Good question, Jake. Thank you for asking. No, I would not do it.
I think I would try. We just watched a fan episode where they only had to make two weeks and they had no experience whatsoever. Like they got like a day of learning how to use a bow drill and create a bird trap, and that was it. And
I have a very hot take on camping that Jenny thinks is hilarious.
What's that?
I think camping is what first world countries do for fun as third world countries just live it as their normal life. So when you ask somebody, you know, in a first world country, like, oh, what do you do for fun? You know, and if it were theoretically someone in the third world, like, what do you do? And we're like, oh, we live like you. You know, we go out to the boonies, we kick it all rough.
What's funny is like I can't like argue that in a sophisticated way. All I can say is that I enjoy camping because I get to be out in nature for extended periods of time, and it is a different perspective on just kind of your surroundings, especially at night. It's just fun. It's fun to sit around a campfire, grill hot dogs, and
oh yeah, it's a ton of fun. But I just want to go back to my bed afterwards.
Yeah,
I want to eat a s'more and then say that was cool, and then put my head on a pillow. Like
sometimes it's kind of rewarding, but I think you're on to something there.
Yeah, I don't know why. At some point, I just decided that I don't really camp anymore, and I don't think I'm going back. It's nice. I like being on a comfy bed when I go to sleep. I feel like I don't know. Feel like I've gotten to this point where I'm like, I've earned this. I don't want to go back to any of that. Not that it was ever that rough, but you know.
Yeah, no, I enjoy camping. I wonder what other people who listen to this, if they enjoy camping, because we're a very digital focused niche. So I feel like a lot of people like their computers more than like to camp. But
I like the things that you do while camping that aren't camping. Like campfires are great. That's a ton of fun. Even like outside games, like bags and that sort of stuff. Totally cool.
Canoeing,
s'mores, awesome. Hiking, yeah, hiking's cool.
I said canoeing and kayaking, but hiking also, yes.
Oh, I heard hiking. So
I went skydiving last time I went camping, like legit camping.
What? How does that even?
It was on a big like camp resort, and then like in the morning we woke up and then we drove to the skydiving area.
Whoa, okay. That's cool.
I was gonna say, Lauren's sister actually, she like spends like every year or so, she spends like a week in the Everglades, just like roughing it.
What?
That's what I thought too. I was like, what?
That's why.
She's a psychologist too, and so like but her reasoning is that she wants to be able to live, you know, I guess humble herself every year. That's my words. That's not her words. That's how I'm taking that. But if you're not familiar with the Everglades in the US, it is basically like the one uninhabitable area that besides the desert in Arizona where like you will get eaten by what? Alligators, snakes, crocodiles, snakes, everything.
I got the snake problem. That's what freaks me out when I see all the snakes. The other stuff I don't even think that much about, but I know
the Everglades is the Amazon of the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
That's a no for me, dog.
All right. Well, let's talk about some other cons about starting up an agency. Good transition there.
Yep.
I was going to jump into and say like there's more legal hoops. You've got a lot of other things that you can't necessarily do, or a lot of things that are relevant to agencies, but not personal brand. So we can't legally, with air quotes, give our employees profit share because they don't legally own a percentage of the business. And that's something that's a legal hoop that you have to kind of pay attention to. In addition, that's like paying or referring to Lisette as an employee. We can't legally do that because we don't have an employer of record in Colombia. and therefore don't have a business entity in Colombia.
Yeah. So there's also things like we can't legally expect from her at the same way, or at the same time too. Those are things you got to figure out. You sign up to do this.
So shout out to On Top, who
big shout out.
Kind of essentially can employ her, but she chooses to remain contracted from On Top, and then we use On Top. We pay On Top as kind of like that medium, and it's just basically an expense to us rather than a payroll expense. And what it comes out to is it's roughly the same in terms of paying someone locally with like payroll tax and things like that versus like On Top's fee. So it's almost the same, and it makes it super easy. They deposit US dollars into her bank account, which goes way further in Colombia than Colombian pesos, which is why she wants to remain a contractor, because if she were to get hired, she'd get paid in Colombian pesos. So different legality things you got to pay attention to when you're a solo person. That's just a personal brand. You don't really have to pay attention to that. I mean, you still have to get your LLC set up so you can set up a barrier to protect yourself, but that's there's just more to do within an agency. Also, owning an agency, it isn't as cool to the people you grew up with in high school. If you can build like a personal brand that's like recognizable, that's so awesome. You go back to your like 20-year reunion and be like, I'm a big deal. But when you own an agency, all it is just like a shell that like covers you, and no one knows how much money you make or how big of a deal you are unless you brag about it.
Yeah, which I like, but
I guess if you get big enough, you can, like, if your agency gets big enough, but but the whole purpose of this, I know we're getting a long episode. The whole purpose of this was that you don't have to necessarily choose one or the other. You can, if you want to, or you can have both, which was what my advice ended up being to this guy. I was like, you don't have to just start an agency and run with that. You don't have to just start a personal brand and run with that. You can have both. And this is what I was talking to you about the beginning of the episode with Gary Vee, is he has both. He has Gary Vee, as everybody knows him, and then he has VaynerMedia, which is huge. And like their minimum cost to like monthly cost is like 20 to 40,000 or something like that per month. I think it's like 40,000. So they're only bringing on like enterprise level clients. But like myself, for instance, myself and Cody, we have our agency, Evergrow Marketing, and then we also kind of have our personal brand, which is this podcast as well. But even before Evergrow started, you already had your own personal brand. And you still do. And Cody and I both have our own sites. He is CodyC.com. I have JConley.com.
Yeah, I keep a second legal shell too, but it's just a catch-all for anything else that I might care to do, but want to run through a different legal entity that way. Yeah, that started, especially in the US, it's just safer.
Yeah, and same thing with me with some of those consultancy stuff I'm doing on the side. I have my own separate. I mean, I'm not even an LLC. I'm just a sole proprietor, so I don't even have that barrier. But it's just Jake Hunley. So when I consult with this French company, it's very. I just invoice them through my Jake Hunley Stripe account and not the Evergrow Stripe account, and it's all separated. But yeah, eventually Cody and I are going to take this further. We're going to have, we plan to get on YouTube. We've already got a plan for that, to get this podcast transitioned over. Maybe create a course. It's, I don't know. It's out in the future, and you already know our philosophy on course creations. So if we do make anything, it would be affordable and actually valuable. We don't have any of the logistics of that yet, but
yeah.
More so me than anything, because even this October, I'm going to speak at a landscaping convention or landscaping conference. Cody would, but you're not going to be there.
So. I could not. I fought for it too, even. But
yeah, so it'll be my first actual speaking engagement. It's kind of big.
Yeah, get it.
And not one I paid to be there. When I was invited. But
yeah, that's cool.
Well, that's all I had. I hope this episode was helpful. I know we've had a couple in the past and like the recent ones that I didn't feel like were as helpful. They're more of just kind of us explaining some things and just talking about things. But I want these next few to be very, very helpful and you be able to walk away with copious amounts of information.
Mm-hmm. More targeted, more focused.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.